Meanwhile, we have to also talk, of course, about the somber part of this week, which is that hundreds of people attended the funeral for Tyre Nichols, the 29-year-old black man who died after being beaten by Memphis police last month. At the service, his mother, Rovon Wells, said she hoped his death wouldn't be in vain. And Vice President Kamala Harris called for legislation to hold police accountable.
The only thing that's keeping me going is the fact that I really truly believe my son was sent here on an assignment from God. And I guess now his assignment is done and he's been taken home.
Tyre Nichols should have been safe. We demand that Congress pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Joe Biden will sign it.
Still, any meaningful progress toward passing policing reform is an uphill battle. The last effort to pass a policing bill failed in the Senate in 2021, and one of the lead negotiators at the time, Republican Senator Tim Scott, said he hopes this time will be different.
We want only the best wearing the badge in this great nation. But politics too often gets in the way of doing what every American knows is common sense.
So, Aisha, I want to come to you. What are you hearing from people who, frankly, are most impacted by this? Which I have to say, as African Americans, they're killed at 2.5 times the rate of white people were killed as African Americans, at 2.5 times the rate of white Americans. Is there change? Or people sort of wanting? I know people are wanting change, but people believing that there can be change even on the local level?
I think that it's really difficult. I think that what I'm hearing when I talk to people is really just exhaustion. Michelle Martin of NPR was down in Memphis, and she talked about how even when she talked to people there, that so many of them were saying that they had had run-ins with the Memphis police, or people they knew and love had had run-ins with the Memphis police that were not good and that were dangerous. And so I think that there is just an issue where, yes, people are concerned about crime. The people affected by crime, and oftentimes it is poor black people, but they are also concerned about police brutality and being beaten and having to worry about just getting home. And right now, I don't know that the federal government offers much relief, because the idea of Congress being able to act seems very far-fetched at this point. They couldn't do it after George Floyd. It's going to be very difficult to do it now in this divided Congress. And so what can happen at the local level? I think there is pressure to try to make some differences. They, disbanded this part of the police force that was able to do this, the Scorpion part. But at the same time, it's like, what is going to happen? What is going to be done? And I don't think we have good answers.
And I want to ask you really quickly about just the trauma that you're hearing from Black people and people in this country who, apart from obviously calls for change, part of that funeral was just mourning the loss of someone who should be here to raise his 4-year-old child.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing of it is, it's like every life has worth, right? Like, so it's like this person, Tyre, he was a skateboarder, he was a father, he was beloved. This was his mother, that was her baby. I know I have a son until forever. He will always be my baby. And she lost him. And I just think there is just a pain in that we carry, that is physical, that is meaningful. And I don't think this country fully deals with it, because it's too much.
And can I say, I think I totally agree, and I think that one of the sad things that this reminds us is the disconnect between that kind of trauma and policy making. It used to be sort of the idea that, like, when something traumatic happened, it would trigger action, right? It would trigger politicians, lawmakers, presidents to act. And whether it's 20, little children getting killed at Sandy Hook, or it's immigrants, dying crossing the Rio Grande, or whether it's, George Floyd or others, or Tyre Nichols dying in these police. We're at a point, and we're at a paralysis in Washington where even the most traumatic, horrible things that happen aren't enough to trigger political action and a response. And I think that is what leaves so many Americans so deeply frustrated with, with these situations.
And a challenge, I think, for President Biden in a State of the Union address next week as well. We know he's going to talk about police reform. How could he not? But will he have something new to say? Is there some fresh approach? I mean, if it couldn't pass, if the George Floyd Act couldn't pass in the wake of his death, right, and with Democrats controlling both houses of Congress, it's not going to pass now. Is there something else that leadership could do that gets us to a different place in this terrible stalemate?
And it's interesting. I mean, when you talk about sort of this stalemate, Ryan, Jim Jordan surprised me because he said the police misconduct is a form of the weaponization of the government, which I was like, had to do a double take. But he also said in the same breath, he can't think of any law that would stop what happened to Tyre Nichols. So what are you hearing from Republicans? Are they echoing Jim Jordan?
Well, define police misconduct, Yamiche. For a Republican like Jim Jordan, it would be the FBI raiding Mar-a-Lago to find classified documents that were inappropriately taken. It would be Capitol Police officers roughing up January 6 protesters, as they're called, as they were storming the Capitol illegally. That's part of the problem that we have in Washington that Michael points to. People are talking past each other. Even these things that we think would be kind of basic knowledge that we all agree upon, a problem like police brutality or law enforcement run amok, different Americans have different definitions for those. And particularly in the House of Representatives, those members are speaking specifically only to those constituencies. So, you know, the second you start talking about police reform, the first thing Republicans do is run tape of Democrats saying defund the police. And the first thing that happens on the other side is that they accuse Republicans of not being serious about this. So it's just like Michael talked about, it's the same conversation we have about guns. It's the same conversation we have about immigration. Everybody just retreats back to the talking points and no one is interested in that consensus in the middle. You know, there's a big difference between not changing anything and defunding the police, right? Yeah. There is some sort of middle ground there that can be found, but it is so elusive because there's no political benefit to it right now.
And Aisha, I want to come to this idea that I've been talking to people about, which is, can you even legislate hearts and minds? Of course, people, even civil rights leaders say we need to have new laws, but there's also this sort of lack of humanity that people think they're seeing when they see, frankly, that they do see when they see Tyre Nichols being beaten the way that he was beaten, especially as he's calling out for his mother in the same way that George Floyd called out for his mother.
Well, I mean, look, we have to use the word, we have to talk about, even though these were Black police officers, there is an idea of policing that is rooted in white supremacy. Like, that is something that people make the argument over and over again, and that when you have Black bodies and that that Black people are not valued enough. So if you are in a position of authority, you may feel like you can get away with treating this person like they are not human versus the way you would treat somebody who's white and in a suit. And that's just a fact. And we have to really deal with that if we are going to deal with the issues of police brutality in this country.
And that gets back to not just funding police reform. It talks about funding education. It talks about funding food programs, you know, to eliminate things like food insecurity and poverty. This is all part of the systemic problems that lead to the situation that we saw in Memphis that lawmakers just don't want to have a serious conversation about.
I mean, and we only have 10 seconds left, even as Ryan talks about education, we think about the fact that the AP African American Studies is being watered down. So it's a tough place to be.
It's a tough place to be, and I think Ryan was exactly right. We are talking past each other, and like even when it comes to what our history is and what we want to learn, we are not talking the same language.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to leave it there tonight. Thank you all of our panelists. Thank you for your reporting and your insights, and be